It is time to bring in our State House insiders via telephone this week. We have John Parker, our Republican strategist, Antoine Seawright, our Democratic strategist. Guys, let's talk about what's going on now in the aftermath following the death of Senator Lindsey Graham. John, we've had a lot of people ask us tonight, what's the rush here? Why get a temporary senator in place his sister, Darlene Graham? And why are we, it seems like, rushing the process to find somebody to be on the November ballot? What can you tell us about what's happening?
Well, the simple answer is the law. We're not just dealing with the state's political will and state political preferences, but we're also up against federal election deadlines. The November general election ballot has to be finalized. Federal law requires ballots for military and overseas voters to be sent out at least 45 days for the election. And of course, we have to have a primary process, and then you have to leave at least 2 weeks or in the case of a runoff. So all of that pushes the calendar and makes it critical for us to move this process along as quickly as possible.
Antoine, what's your take on all of this?
Well, there are two things we're wrestling with. I think the swiftness to fill the seat by way of the appointment from Governor McMaster is, I think, an indication that the president and Senate Republicans are concerned about their legislative agenda in Washington. And because they failed the American people on many fronts, they cannot afford to lose any Republican votes if they want to try to push through anything the White House wants. That's why I think there was some cuddle and footsie playing between the White House and Governor McMaster and the Republican caucus in order to get Darlene appointed swiftly. On the election front, I think John is right. There's some laws in place that we have to follow in terms of doing that, and I don't think this is anything out of the ordinary. I think people have questions around how the law is structured in terms of who's able to vote in the primaries. The South Carolina Election Commission made that known pretty widely and broadly. So this is pretty much a non-controversial situation for the most part, other than who can vote in the primary election coming up. Nevertheless, the Democratic nominee is settled, so Democrats do not have to worry about that. Dr. Annie Andrews is our candidate.
And John,
I want to throw out there that with Darlene, I think that it's partly out of respect for Graham's legacy and respect for the South Carolina voters. We've had 4 U.S. senators since 1954, and South Carolina deserves prompt leadership in the United States. And there are critical things here. And when you look at the story of Lindsey Graham, the incredible man that he was, a person who started working in a pool hall and rose to the highest echelons of power, right? That is a South Carolina story, an American story, and there's no better way to end that story. He adopted his 13-year-old sister after being orphaned at 22. There's no better way to close out that story than his sister carrying that torch forward through the rest of his term. It's something a political consultant couldn't have written.
John, respectfully, I'm not arguing about Darlene's appointment. I think the governor has the right to appoint whomever he wants. If Democrats have to reckon with the fact that you cannot govern if you do not win. But I will also say on that note, if I were a doctor and I died tomorrow, you could not just put my sister or my brother in my place as a doctor, because you have to have a sense of qualifications to some degree. I know politics is different, but I don't want the people, because there are some people who don't believe in the idea that relatives should be appointed when there's a death or when there's a vacancy. And I just want to be clear, that has happened, but that is not the standard practice. It can happen, that's not the standard practice.
Antoine, forgive you for just not understanding and knowing Darlene. She's not a well-known figure, but she is a long-time confidant.
But John, respectfully,
and has been elected and been appointed to positions and worked in commissions, and so I don't think that's a fair thing. I think they knew exactly who they wanted from the moment.
John, respectfully, I'm not arguing Darlene because I think it's great. I think she is going to do the job in which I think that people expect her to do, carry out her brother's legacy. I'm not arguing that point. What I am saying is there are everyday people sitting around watching this program in other places in America saying, why not, why her? Is it just because she's Lindsey Graham's sister? All I'm saying is that is a standard that has been adopted in politics to appoint a relative, but that is a plus, not necessarily a must. And in any other case, where there's a vacancy in any other profession in the world, you do not just get to appoint a relative just to carry out a legacy. That's all I'm saying. The governor has the right to appoint whoever he wants, and he has the right to appoint whoever he wants. He did that, and the only thing we all can do is go along with that and hope she does what's in the best interest of South Carolina.
All right, John, I'm going to give you the last word. We are less than a minute away from having to conclude this segment, so I'll give you the last word, John.
Well, I would probably say, is a really pressing, an important thing here is that the last working day that Senator Graham had was in Kiev. There's an important bill deciding whether or not to do sanctions on Russia, and that's something we certainly should be watching because that has not just national but global effects. It's one of the many things that Senator Graham was working on, and it is a testament to the kind of ongoing influence of this man. All
right, John Parker, Antoine Seawright, guys, as always, thank you so very much for your time. Funeral service is still incomplete. As soon as we have that funeral information, we'll pass it along to you both on air and online at WLTX.com. A quick break.